Gang of Eight sweeping immigration overhaul. The goal? To get it passed and move it along with added pressure to the Republican-led House. One key voice here, Senator Rand Paul, Republican from Kentucky, who wants big changes to the current legislation, including tougher border security and congressional oversight. Senator Paul joining us now from Capitol Hill. Good morning to you, Senator Paul.
Good morning. Glad to be with you.
So as this debate heats up among your colleagues on the floor of the Senate, what has been the reception to some of your proposed amendments?
Well, you know, we haven't had a full airing or discussion yet, but I'm one of the Republicans who favors immigration reform, but I think that any legalization of those who are here illegally should be dependent upon border security. And unfortunately, we're hearing from the Gang of Eight they want the opposite. They want legalization not dependent on border security. But I think most conservatives in the country want to see the border secured, and then they're willing to go ahead and give documentation to workers that are here illegally. But we can't do it if we're not going to secure the border first. So
if you do not get that dependent, that factor, that amnesty is tied to border security, will you then not vote for the bill?
Really, I think it's a fatal flaw of the bill. If the bill does not allow for Congress to vote on whether or not the border is secure, and if the documentation process is not dependent on the borders being secure, I think the whole concept is fatally flawed.
Senator, you pointed out that your proposed amendments haven't yet had a full airing in the Senate. What kind of reception are you getting in the House? Because this bill isn't going to go anywhere unless the House Republicans get behind it as well. What are they saying about your proposed amendments?
You know, I've talked to many conservatives in the House and some who are willing to vote for some kind of immigration reform, but they tell me it's a non-starter to legalize all the people and then have a promise that the administration will write a report on whether or not the border is secure. So what I've been talking to them about is that Congress gets to vote each year. I call my amendment Trust But Verify, that we verify that the border is becoming more secure by voting on it each year. And I think a lot of conservatives in the House are interested in this idea. I know that they're on a completely different page than the bill in the Senate, that the bill in the Senate has no chance in the House. And what I'm trying to do is offer up something that is a bridge between the gap between the Senate and the House.
But Senator Paul, this idea that Congress would have the authority to vote on whether the border security is being met, people don't trust Congress. If you look at Americans and you look at the polling data, they don't want to politicize this process.
Yeah, well, it is politicized because government's involved with it, your representatives are involved with it. But what I would say is that we need more to assure people that the border will be secure. The main problem with the 86 legalization process was they offered us and they said, oh, border security will come at a later date. It never came, and that's why conservatives are unhappy. The only way to make conservatives and the public at large more confident is to have more checks and balances in the bill. So what I'm asking is, yes, every year Congress gets the chance to come back and reevaluate this. Is that a political process? Yes, but it's a check and a balance against saying to the President Obama's administration, oh, you guys take care of it, and you write a report and tell us whether you approve that the border is secure. I don't buy that. I think Congress has to approve that the border is being secure. That's the only thing that I would trust.
Senator, how is it that Congress would know that the border is secure? You're trying to prove the unknowable, demonstrating that illegal immigrants haven't made it across the border into the United States. The fact that they're illegal and made it across the border in the first place means that they've escaped the surveillance and security of the border to begin with.
We do several things. Number one, instead of saying border security is something that the administration will do, we write it into the bill. We say that 100 miles of fence have to be built. We give more authority to the immigration courts. We also say that if you're caught crossing the border illegally, you're not released. You're not allowed to go into the interior country and advised or encouraged to come back for your court date. You're held, there's a quick court date, and you are deported if you come in here illegally. So we have much more security that we write into the substance of the bill. But then what we have is at the end of year one, an investigator general looks at border security. We look at census data to see how many illegal aliens or immigrants are said to be in the country. We look at all of these things. We look at reports from governors, and then we vote on whether the border is more secure or less at the end of the year, given all of this information. But we do two things. we go ahead and tell Congress to institute border security, and we write it in the bill, and then we also have a report that comes back and is voted on by Congress.
Senator Paul, while we have time with you left, I just want to rip up the script here because President Obama told Charlie Rose that Ben Bernanke, Fed chairman, has probably stayed on a little bit longer than he'd like to. As we take this process into consideration, is there anyone that you would like to see as the next Fed chairman?
To me, it's not so much about the individual as it is having a bank that doesn't manipulate interest rates. I think when you manipulate and you keep interest rates below the market rate of interest, you get rid of that feedback loop. That's a very important piece of information for everybody doing business in the country. The price of the money should fluctuate with the demand, the supply and the demand, and it shouldn't be fixed by the government. That leads to a lot of malinvestment and leads to misdirection of capital and leads to an exacerbation of the boom-bust cycle. So whoever we get, we need to get somebody who gets their hands out of meddling with the interest rates on a daily basis.
Which is what's going on right now, you're saying?
Yes.
Senator Paul, also before we let you go, General Keith Alexander of the NSA is set to testify any minute before the House Intelligence Committee. He's been speaking recently, and so have other members of the nation's security apparatus. Have they said anything thus far to put you at ease over the delicate balance that needs to be struck between homeland security and invasion of privacy?
No, and in fact, I think there's a large degree of credibility gap in the Intelligence Committee since they came to Capitol Hill and lied to us and said they weren't collecting any data on Americans when it turns out they're collecting data on 1 billion phone calls from Americans every day. So there really is a credibility gap when they tell us these things. What I think is that you can catch terrorists the old-fashioned way, good police work, and obey the Bill of Rights, ask a judge for a warrant, follow the trail from one suspect to the other, but there's no reason why 1 billion phone calls of Americans need to be looked at every day.
All right, thanks for sharing your views as always. Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky joining us from Capitol Hill on the NSA and primarily on immigration currently being debated in the Senate.